We're good. Good morning. I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February 28th, 2024. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representatives Barrett, Boyd, Camper, Cochran, Crawford, Faison, Freeman, Gant, Garrett, Hawk, Hicks of Hawkins, Hicks of Washington, Kiesling, Lamberth, Love, Lynn, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Parkinson, Shaw, Sparks, Whitson, Williams, Zachary, Vice Chairman Baum, Chair Lady Hazelwood.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank all of you for being here. It's a ugly Monday. I know I have a text from a couple of members who are stuck in traffic and behind a wreck and that sort of thing. So we'll just hope that everyone arrives safely where they need to be. Do we have any personal orders or announcements before we get underway? Chairman Kiesling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be remiss not to bring to everyone's attention our district attorney, Mr. Jared Effler, over in the 8th Judicial District, and staff, maybe team members with him today. General, thank you for being here. We appreciate y'all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Lady Chairman Kiesling beat me to it, so it's going to tell the general good morning. This good to see you here.
Any other personal orders or announcements? All right, seeing none. This morning we are here for budget hearings, our continuation of those. We begin with the Department of Corrections, followed by the Corrections Institute, and then the Department of Commerce and Insurance. So without objection, we will go out of session, and I would ask that the Department of Corrections come to the table and we will listen to their budget presentation. Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you all for being here and making the trek through the rain.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our recommended budget. With me today, I have my Assistant Commissioner and CFO, Valerie Murtha, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, Lisa Parks, Assistant Commissioner, Rehabilitative Services, Gail Fenkel, Assistant Commissioner, Prison Operations, Linda Thomas. And I have other members of my exec staff behind me if questions for their areas arise. The department's fiscal year budget for 25 is recommended to be $1.4 billion. We have 2 reductions totaling $3.7 million and 4 cost increase totaling $9.8 million. The department was intentional about requesting investment in what we know works to improve conditions. We provided research and impact for promising and proven effective programs. We'd like to briefly touch on each reduction and cost increases, and Assistant Commissioner Murtha will discuss the next few slides.
Good morning, Valerie Murtha, CFO and Assistant Commissioner. The department has 2 reductions that total $3.7 million. $1.3 million is a reduction in the operating funds for imprisonment changes allotment, and the remaining $2.4 million adjustment reflects a change to how mainframe costs will be covered going forward. On to the next slide is our cost increases. This slide summarizes our cost increases. We've requested 4 that total $9.8 million. All of the increases are related to cost inflators for the private prisons, the behavioral health contract, risk needs assessments, and evidence-based programming. No new positions are being requested, and no supplemental funding is being requested for our fiscal year 24 budget. On the next slides, we'll talk about more of the increases. The first increase is for $7 million for the private prisons contract inflator. As you're aware, we directly contract with Core Civic for the South Central Correctional Facility and with the counties for the other 3 prisons, which are Hardman County Correctional Facility, Whiteville Correctional Facility, and Trousdale Turner Correctional Center. The budget capacity for these sites is 7,490 beds, which represents 33% of our overall capacity. We're requesting just over $7 million for these contracts. Next slide. The next inflator is $2.3 million for our behavioral health contract inflator. This contractor provides comprehensive behavioral health services, and the $2.3 million covers the increase of 28 cents per inmate per day. I'll now turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Finkel that will discuss the next 2 slides.
Good morning, Assistant Commissioner Gail Fenkel. The department is also requesting $404,000 as year 4 contract inflator for our risk needs partner. It's in the contract, and this just represents, it will allow us to provide the recurring assessment and also provides for the inflator that's within the contract as part of year 4. Next slide. Similarly, we are also requesting $115,300 for our evidence-based programming contract inflator. Closer. Okay. And this again is the contract inflator for an existing program and an existing contract, and it represents 2.87%.
So in closing, what I'd like to do is thank everybody from the committee for the continued support that the department has received over the years and is continuing. And with this, at this time, Madam Chair, we'll open it up to any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. And if I could just get you all to speak into the microphones. I don't know if they're not picking up as well, or if maybe not as close, but. And first on my list is Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and thank you, Commissioner, for being with us this morning. I've got a couple of questions. In the 22-23 budget included $10 million reoccurring state funding to increase instructional supports within prisons, jails, and community supervision settings as a part of the Correctional Education Investment Initiative. Can you provide an overview on how this initiative is progressing? And I'll just wait for an answer on that. Just if you can give us an update.
Okay.
Good morning, Assistant Commissioner Gail Fenkel. To date, $3 million has been allocated for programming out of the CEI funds that you mentioned. $5 million of that, it lies within the department. We also have additional programming that we are investigating and additional investments in technology, which would allow us to implement some distance learning capabilities from one prison facility to other prison facilities, and potentially even allow community supervision offices to log into those classes as well.
Okay, Madam Chair Lady. Does Core Civic participate in these efforts this time? Core Civic facilities?
Core Civic does participate in these efforts. Core Civic has the same programming opportunities that the TDOC prisons have.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's an important piece. I went to one of the first graduations at Morgan County, and it was amazing the number of welders, electricians, pipe fitters, and so forth. So thank you for this. And it is a reoccurring appropriation. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner, and your team. Thank you very much for being here. Quite a large team you've got with you today, so appreciate that. We are concerned as a committee about the findings of the recent audit. We've been critical of our staffing shortages and in the number of correctional officers at both state and Core Civic operated facilities. According to TDOC's response to our questionnaire we sent out as of December 18th, 2023, there were 1,127 vacant positions within the department. 395 of those have been vacant for more than 12 months. Where are we? We've invested $28 million last budget on top of the $60 million that have been used in the 21 budget to bring more correctional officers on board. We're fearful of more findings. Where are we in terms of our workforce being in the facilities and the safety therein of those correctional officers? I'll open it up. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So we understand we have a staffing issue in the department. You know, since 2022, when the pay raise was initiated, our vacancies decreased by 50%. What we have done since the audit, we have continued to do rapid hire events in our hard-to-fill locations. We have done town hall meetings. I don't know if you've been watching the TV, but we've been blitzing the TV with ads for correctional officers on the news channel. I've also done interviews to assist with that. We've had our own staff be part of these commercials. We've added stipends. We've added high security stipends, location stipends. We're even looking at floating crews to increase our staff to inmate ratio in those areas. You know, obviously, we're competing with the same law enforcement community for the same worker, and what we do is what we're funded for is what we pay. So it's an ongoing. We don't have so much of a problem of hiring. It's the retaining and of the individual, and that's where we need to look at how do we keep somebody with us for 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up, we fully realize that staffing and employment is the challenge across all departments at the state level. So I understand that. And I do, driving my 4 hours back and forth, I see at least 4 billboards coming in. So I see the efforts, the marketing efforts to try to bring folks in and applaud that effort. We've just got to get to a place where we can, again, rely on our folks to keep each other safe in the facilities. Overtime, we've been using a lot of overtime over the last several years, and it has been deemed largely as unsustainable. Tell me about the augmentee program. We may not have the exact numbers, how much overtime we have paid, but if you've got a ballpark estimate how much overtime we have paid in this time, and just tell the committee a bit about the augmentee program. Thank you. That's final question, Madam Chair.
Okay, while she's looking up the number, I will say that, you know, we have addressed the augmentee program, and I'll have Assistant Commissioner Stanford, who's written the language for us on the augmentee program, and then I'll turn over Ms. Murtha to give you the budget numbers.
Good morning, Assistant Commissioner Heather Stanford. And so the augmentee program, of course, was started to supplement our staffing shortages at the facilities. And so it was created as a temporary solution. And so that program's been running now for a couple of years. And as Commissioner mentioned, we are focused now on bringing on full-time employees in those positions. So we're beginning to scale back that augmentee program. The need is lessening, and so we've begun to scale that back. AC Thomas has looked over the rosters, and so we've designated what post augmentees can work. So that kind of cut out the augmentees working posts they shouldn't be on. And we have also cut back the level of employee that can participate. So now no employee over a salary grade M can participate in the program. That's more of our executive employees, admin employees, as well as facilities who are staffed with greater than 85% of correctional officers do not participate. So if they have better than a 15% vacancy rate, they're not using the program.
And go ahead, yes.
Valerie Murtha, Assistant Commissioner. In fiscal year 23, we spent 43 million in overtime. And yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have a projection right now for this year because we've just recently made the changes in the reduction of who can participate. So it's difficult to give a good projection for the end of this year.
If I may add, Assistant Commissioner Linda Thomas, I do oversee the overtime. I actually look at rosters weekly. And just yesterday, I noted, I think we only had 4 facilities that actually submitted overtime this time. So we've done some hands-on work with the institutions to make sure it's only necessary overtime, even if it's a post on the roster. If it's not necessary, we're not paying it. And I'll have a personal conversation with the warden if need be to reduce it.
And Commissioner, you mentioned previously in your remarks that I think these labor shortage issues vary by location. So for the good of the committee and those watching, can you share with us where the biggest challenges are? I assume that's where the most overtime is being required.
Yeah, Madam Chair, our biggest vacancy is in our Northwest facility. That's where we're close to about between 55, 60%, although we just recently had a rapid hiring event there, and we were able to submit 25 qualifying officers for offers for staff for employment. If, we were to realize those 25, that would actually reduce that vacancy by 10%, which would help us greatly there. So each institution has a different vacancy rate. Obviously, those closer to the metropolitan area were doing better. Bledsoe is one of our better facilities when it comes to our staffing, but Northwest and Northeast are some of the areas that we struggle.
Thank you. And I'd like to go back. Commissioner, you mentioned earlier there was a question about educational opportunities. And you said that Core Civic provided the same opportunities as the state institutions. But the audit finding said that that was not the case. So help me understand that contradiction, if you would.
So they offer programming, not every program that we have in our state facilities, but they do offer programming. If there's an inmate in a Core Civic facility that needs a specific program, then we will move that inmate to a state facility. So it's not like they don't have access to program, but Core Civic does have programming within the facilities. I think it's HiSET. What else do you have, Gail?
They have treatment-based programming, therapeutic behavior, therapeutic substance use. They have CTE, a soon-to-come online building trades with TCAT coming this spring at Trousdale. So they do have programming.
Well, I think you would understand that we would be very concerned about that audit finding. No matter where people are incarcerated, one of the points of incarceration obviously is punishment, but the other is to try and turn these people around so that they get out of that cycle. You can't do that if you're not providing the therapy and the educational opportunities that we say that we're doing, in which as Finance Committee, we think we're funding those. So I just would ask that you would continue to make sure that there's oversight within all of our operations, whether they're state-owned or contracted, and that people in those facilities do have the opportunities that we think we're providing. Representative Hicks of Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and thank you for what you've done over the last few years in a really tough space. So we thank you for that. My questions are sort of along these same lines. Can you tell me how correctional officers' salaries in Tennessee compare to those in contiguous states?
Heather Stanford, Assistant Commissioner, Human Resources. At last glance, was last year, we are very competitive with the bordering states. So we've actually improved the salaries to a point that all states around us, we are competitive with now.
Good. In last year's budget, it also included $15 million in recurring state funding to provide raises to correctional officers who are employed by Core Civic. How do these salaries for correctional officers compare between Core Civics and the state? And how do these vacancy rates compare? How do those two things compare?
Oh, Valerie Murtha, Assistant Commissioner. We verified that their pay was comparative to our pay rate after they received that money. They were receiving the same as our officers were.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And along these same lines, the audit also presented a finding of heightened operational and cultural risk, including serious safety concerns due to vacancies at Northwest Correctional Complex. What is being done to specifically address these findings?
That's a great question. We have invested almost close to $6 million in staff and inmate safety. We have put in additional body scanners, handheld metal detectors, pepper spray, tasers, walk-through metal detectors. We've upped our contraband interdiction efforts. We've installed razor wires. We have a drone detection pilot at our Northwest. We've actually seen in the last 9 to 10 months a reduction in weapons by 23%, cell phones by 21%, offenders assaults by 12%, reduction of drugs found by 6.8%, and staff assaults by almost 5%. So we look and we map all of our incidents in contraband in the state, and we kind of like a traffic light, red, green, yellow, and we look where we need to put the resources, and especially the walk-through metal detectors. So if we find an area that has a high level of metal, we'll put those metal detectors there. So we're investing, and we look at technology as a way to assist, but not to substitute for a staff member, but it's a way that we try to assist, and we've replaced vests and radios as well inside of our facilities.
Thank you for that answer. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Chairman Whitson.
Thank you, Chair Lady, and Commissioner and team. Y'all have one of the most complex and challenging missions of any department in the state, and recognize that. And it's tough when you're dealing with individuals. And also, I've been up by the facility there, the Northwest Complex. It is in an isolated area, and I can understand the challenges of finding folks to man that. So, and I've seen your commercials, and I encourage you to continue to do that. I hope it's effective. My questions also has to do with the audit. The Chair Lady hit on that, and specifically, the audit found that CoreCivic does not offer offenders post-secondary education or group therapy. Or is there anything working on that particular issue that was found in the audit?
Yes, sir. CoreCivic, in fact, does offer TCAT and CTE. Post-secondary education is something that we're also working on with the notion of distance learning. Getting the instructors into those facilities is sometimes presents a challenge. So to enable some distance learning and have a classroom where the instructor doesn't necessarily have to be on site is one way that they are attempting to beef that up, if you will. There are substance use and treatment programs and skilled trades, and like I was saying earlier, a new TCAP program with building trades coming to Trousdale in the next couple of months.
Okay, and the other finding had to deal with offenders receiving their required medications. Can you offer some information on that? That was a finding.
Jillian Bresnahan, Assistant Commissioner, Clinical Services. Yes, that finding did indicate that there had been errors in medication administration that had come down to the EMR that the site had been using, and that has since been corrected. We've also put in place auditing for quarterly check-ins to make sure that that does not happen again.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question, Chair Lady. This has to do with contract inflators. How is the amount provided for the contract inflator determined? And the other part of that, does each of these contracts include provisions requiring a certain amount for annual inflation? And why do these costs vary year to year for the contract? I hope that was clear what I asked.
Good morning, Lisa Parks, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. All of the contracts have a set rate within them. It's actually specified by fiscal year within each one. So Hardeman County, it was 1.6 million. The current rate for FY24 current fiscal year 6465. It will be going to what we are estimating it as 6691 because that contract does expire the end of June.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
You want me to go into all three, the rest of the three?
Can you tell how they're determined? You talked about the estimates.
Yeah, it has actually the per diem is specified within the contract by fiscal year. So it would say like in Whiteville, fiscal year 25, it'll say 7666 is the rate per inmate per day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
But I guess to just drill down a little bit on Chairman Whitson's question, that's the number, but how is that number based on some sort of CPI index? How do we arrive at that number?
That is what the vendor submitted to us, and traditionally it has been based on the CPI.
Thank you. Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I just want to tell the committee that last week, the commissioner and almost his whole staff here, it seems like, took me on a tour of the women's prison here in Nashville. And boy, was that just a wonderful tour. It was so educational. I recommend it to the entire committee, all of us have constituents, especially if you're here long enough, constituents who maybe have adult children who are incarcerated. And of course, they have anxiety and concerns. And I can't tell you how educational it was to see the facility and the dedication of the staff. It's truly a mission for many of the staff members. It is their mission. And I so appreciate that. So Madam Chairman, thank you for letting me just say that. And thank you, Commissioner, and your entire staff for that time together. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about, in the 2022, since 2022, a total of 109 positions have been established in connection with the Reentry Success Act of 2021. These positions are meant to assist in the standardization and modernization of reentry supervision and to establish mandatory reentry supervision. Are these positions currently filled? We know that it's difficult to hire. We know it's a tight labor market. So have you been able to fill these positions? And if not, how many positions were you able to fill? And when do you expect to fill the funded positions?
Valerie Murtha, Assistant Commissioner. We received a total of 106 positions according to our records, and currently all of them are filled except for 15 probation and parole officers, of which 9 of those vacancies are from positions we received in 24, 4 are from positions we received in 23, and 2 are from fiscal year 22.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And before my last questions, I would be remiss if I did not mention the wonderful work of Ashley Fuquay. She is a wonderful liaison for you, and I'm sure the entire legislature is grateful for her work because, if we have to call, it's a very sensitive issue, and we just so appreciate the time and attention that she gives to her job. My next question is about the day reporting centers. They are a critical function in the drive to reduce the recidivism rate. Currently, there are 8 day reporting centers in the state. Are there any plans to increase the number of day reporting centers? And of course, that might depend on this committee here, but please let us know what the needs are and how they're doing and any plans. Thank you.
Actually, there are 7 day reporting centers with 1 in the works in Columbia. They're very valuable. It's a 3-phase program for these individuals, and they're mandated by a court to come to this program. It's very beneficial. And in addition to that, what most people don't recognize or understand is the community resource center component of those day reporting centers, where we average about 525 Tennesseans who receive services at these community resource centers. And we've provided over 5,400 services in the first 6 months of this fiscal year alone. So that combined with the day reporting center, which serves a lower number of individuals, but with higher need, obviously, the combination makes these very, very valuable.
Commissioner, I took a moment before to go out and tell you that I'm going to be sending your department 2 books. One is Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer, and the other one is Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind by Dr. Georgia Eddy. This is cutting edge research out of Harvard University on diet and mental health. And we know that so many of our inmates have mental health issues. And I hope you all will these are brand new books. I'm telling you, brand new. And this is my passion. I love diet and nutrition. So thank you for being willing to accept these gifts from me. And I hope that your department finds them fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Prisons are very expensive, and they're getting more and more expensive. I appreciate what y'all done. I want to congratulate Ashley for taking us on a tour, and Heather Michelle. We were out there the other day. Senator Jackson, Representative Elaine Davis, and Ed Butler. And I want to encourage this entire committee and all of our lawmakers to go out there and visit. I had an interesting visit with 6 women that were serving 51-year sentence. Don't know their names, but they all, I think, have completed their college degree. And I think a few of them have completed their master's degree. Very impressive. And I asked them where they found hope. You know, hope, it's a verb, but it's important. We all have to have hope. And I was just kind of thinking to myself while I'm at the, man, I got the freedom to go see my beautiful wife when I leave here. I got the freedom to do what I want to do. They don't have the freedom. And I asked them about trauma and sexual abuse in their lives. Almost all of them raised their hand. It's a serious issue, as y'all know. Are there enough counselors and therapists to try to talk with these ladies and even men as well? You know, it's a serious issue, but are we providing enough services and we provide enough funding to kind of reach those folks and others?
I think the issue is, I think our staffing is adequate to meet that goal. Sometimes it's very difficult to find the counselors that have that expertise to get employed with TDOC because of the salary. You know, when you're competing with the private sector at the state salary, sometimes it's very difficult for us to get there. But we make sure that every inmate that has a need does see a counselor or a therapist. Just because we don't have maybe the numbers that we think we need, that doesn't mean the inmate doesn't get the care they need.
Yeah. Well, they were ironically, they were very complimentary of the system. That it was interesting. You know, do y'all have services like Celebrate Recovery on site? That really doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. I mean,
I don't recall us having that program. I can get a list of the programs we have available and send them to your office if you'd like.
Yeah. The
There might be others interested in that as well. If you would
Okay,
just
I'll send
that
it to you.
to that
Absolutely.
list,
good, real quick.
and we'll share.
When I was
Representative Sparks, if
when I was a
you-
young county commissioner, I used to ask our chief deputy, Bernard Salandy, great guy. I said, man, what's the silver bullet? What's the silver bullet to help? And he said, it's the faith-based initiatives. And some may not believe that, but hey, this guy's seen it. He's been there, 30 years of experience. He said, that's the silver bullet. That's just my thoughts. Just want to share that. But one thing that was interesting, representatives and chairman, I asked those ladies, I said, one was serving 51-year sentence. Well, they all served about 51-year sentence for felony murder. And a lot of it's trauma. You know, I had great opportunity. I had that safety net. I had a dad in my life, stepdad in my life, and a mother in my life. I had the faith-based initiatives going on since I was born. And I asked them, I said, what's up with Centoya Brown got released, but y'all didn't get released? This is curious. They said, well, Centoya Brown had a celebrity advocating for her. Freedom is important, should be important to all of us. Prisons are expensive. This is unsustainable for us to double the prison budget since I was elected. Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Parkinson.
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. You have a tough job. My questions are more along our contractual obligation from the state. Can you give me the basic tenets of what that contractual obligation is from the state with CoreCivic? That's a toss-up to anybody that wants to answer.
Is there on each contract or specifically?
Specifically overall, well, not specifically, but just general tenets of, you know, what is expected from the state and what is expected from you.
Well, just paraphrasing, usually our contracts with privates we would want them to provide to the inmates there everything we provide in our facilities, from, you know, food, healthcare, programming, safety, security, you know, all their needs. So we typically take everything we do in our prisons and pretty much put it in the contract.
And we have contract monitors on site to monitor our contracts, and where they're not performing, they receive a fine.
Right. Okay. And is there, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, can I continue?
Go ahead, Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a quota that the state has to meet in regards to a certain percentage of the beds being filled annually? Or period? Not, it doesn't necessarily have to be annually, but ongoing.
So some beds are based, some facilities are based on per diem, and others, they have a guarantee. That's how, so each contract's just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the guarantee.
So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. There are some, and I don't have them handy, what the rates are, but sometimes our private prisons will have where to make it affordable for the company to operate, they'll be guaranteed to be paid for 95% of capacity, whether there's 95% capacity at that every single day or not, because we transfer inmates between the facilities. So there's, someday there's more than others there. So it's very hard for them to operate if we all of a sudden pulled out a ton of inmates. So that's why sometimes in the contract, you will guarantee a minimum.
And in some cases, we guarantee that because we need the bed space, but then we have to take the unit down because it might need construction or some type of building fabrication, and we move the inmates. So each contract is a little different. It's not unusual in my history dealing with private contracts to have the guarantee over the per diem.
Right. So then, and I just want to be clear on this. Our contract, and this is only at certain facilities where the guarantee is, we have to keep the beds at 95% capacity, or keep the facility at 95% capacity.
We don't have to. We guarantee
pay
them
for
what
it,
the,
though.
yeah. And I don't believe it's at 95. I think it's 90%. Yes, and I believe that's only at one of our contracts. That's at the South Central facility.
And so because I want to get this right, so we pay for 90%, let's say 90%, regardless of whether the facility is at 90% or not. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay. And so is there, and if we go below that 90%, I guess the fact that we're paying for 90% is that considered a fine to the state, or is it just in general contract that we're paying for it anyway, whether it's below 90% or not?
Yeah, it's not considered a fine. We pay whether the inmate is there or not.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here, Commissioner. Appreciate you meeting with me on a couple of constituent concerns. Our mothers and sisters and family are often concerned and feel like their voices are not being heard. So I really appreciate you all meeting with us about how we can help get to the root cause of the problems that they're experiencing. So I really appreciate that. I have a question on the American Rescue Plan funds. Earlier, you said EMR. Is that medical records, electronic medical records? What was that acronym for?
Assistant Commissioner Jillian Bresnahan. Yes, that was the electronic health record.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, thank you. Okay, thank you. So in the American Rescue Plan Act, there was a total of like $13 million appropriated. And if you look at the unspent amount, it's a lot of money that we still have that we have not spent. And so I'm curious about the plan to spend those dollars, because right now they're unobligated to anything. And part of the issue we were having was around these electronic records. And so maybe that's, that could be why the person I was dealing with, who was dealing with diabetes and a few other problems, couldn't get the medication right. I don't know, but I'm just curious about these unspent dollars and what's the plan to spend them. CFO.
Sure.
Okay.
Valerie Murtha, CFO. We received a little over 13 million of ARPA funds and for the electronic health record. The contract was awarded in October for 9.4 million. And we're currently in the process with the vendor because they get paid as they have certain deliverables met. So as you can imagine, creating the electronic health record, it's not going to all be spent right up front. But the contract is for 9.4 million, and then additional funding will be used to purchase additional hardware and networking that's needed to get the electronic health record up and operational. But we do anticipate spending it by the time it expires at the end of 26.
Leader Camper.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And the contract's been let at this point, and we have a reasonable expectation of when it will be up and running. What is that expectation?
Jillian Bresnahan, Assistant Commissioner. The timeline runs through 2025 into 2026. So we're going to be going live with the system site by site beginning in 2025.
2025, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. One last question.
Go ahead, Leader Camper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to the SMU unit program, we met about this, and I've had like a justice impacted advocate come to me about this and have a lot of concerns about it. Could you give me an update on how that program is running? I don't know if that's under operations or who runs that program. I've been getting some complaints about it, and I'm just curious if you all can speak to that program for me.
Yes, ma'am. Linda Thomas, Assistant Commissioner. So the Special Management Unit is one whereby we are actually trying to transition in offenders who pose security concerns within the institution, but provide some type of structured programs to get them to re-enter the general population. We look at that program very carefully. There are some things that my office is trying to do to try to get more inmates back into the general population. And so it's not something that we particularly like doing. Is something that we find necessary at times. But we have been doing well in transitioning our inmates. We have what we call a step down program, and we're stepping them down from that environment and transitioning them back into the general population. We review cases. There are probably right now, I think that I'm looking at in my office about 14 as an example, but so far we haven't had inmates return to that environment that have actually successfully graduated from the program. And it's not just males. I hope to have the last 7 females out and transition back into the general population as well. Within, I don't know, the females, I think we should have them back out probably within the next couple of weeks. And then we'll just continue the program until we can get as many out as possible. Yes.
Leader Camper.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Last question, and maybe Ms. Thomas and I can talk about it offline. What's the timeline from completion? Like you graduate, you go into the program, it's a year. However long you have to be in there, you graduate, and now it's time to transition back. I heard you say step
So
down.
there are a couple different ones. In the past, we were using the longer programs, and I don't want to misrepresent. I think it was somewhere between 18 months, 18 to 24.
Mhm.
So we've been reducing those numbers down. Some we're down to 3 weeks and out. So it just varies. We're trying to do it in a progressive format so that we don't move too fast, but get the offenders the necessary treatment, help, guidance, whatever they need, so that they transition back into the general population.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your answers.
Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another repeat audit finding is that we're releasing people without vital records and service referrals that would set them up for a successful reentry. According to the 22-23 budget, we had about $370,000 of recurring dollars there to allow for this. What are we doing to make sure that we're fixing that problem? I know I talk to people all the time that can't get housing, can't get jobs without these documents, and it's extremely confusing and time consuming.
Thank you. Assistant Commissioner Gail Finkel. Yes, it's $387,000 in the budget, and we do provide vital documents to offenders upon release if they are deemed eligible for that. There's specific criteria. 1,575 individuals were released with driver's license and IDs between July and December, with another over 400 that were ineligible. 50% of those ineligible were because there was an active detainer, about 45%. The balance of that is deemed ineligible by the Department of Safety when they're running the driver's license equipment, and it kicks it out as ineligible for a driver's license for a variety of reasons. There's a list. I don't have it with me. And there were 6 in that period who absolutely refused, which is a very low number. So these individuals want their driver's license and IDs, and we are working to get that for them.
Representative Freeman. Representative Love.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner, and to your staff. Thank you for being here. I had a visitor in my office maybe 3 weeks ago, talked about the benefits of the volunteer program that helped him get off his addiction and then get out of prison. Incarceration has been now, I think, drug-free, alcohol-free for maybe 5 or 6 years, and talked about the benefits even of using a card to show the progression rather than taking a coin into the facilities and the benefits of that. So just wanted to ask you, how successful are those programs where you have formerly incarcerated persons who then become volunteers, who then can go back in and help other persons who are dealing specifically with addiction issues, but I'm sure a range of other issues while they're incarcerated?
Well, our volunteer mentor program is very successful. The volunteers obviously have to apply and qualify via background check. We always have a pipeline of volunteers who want to come in and support, and we're very fortunate. What we're trying to do is find more mentors, and we will be piloting a mentor program this soon, very soon. And we hope that that will take off because that's a little bit more of a commitment for an individual, and it's very different than a volunteer. Volunteers normally facilitate group interactions where mentors have more one-on-one, and they come in through, through the doors as a family member, if you will, for visitation type an arrangement. And we think that's going to provide a really fantastic impact.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one last thing. I know that I think in August, the American Correctional Association is going to have their conference here, and I'm hopeful that it'll be very successful and that we can glean some things from that and also maybe model some things for others as they come in town. Thank you.
I see no further questioners on my list. I have none on my list. I see no further hands. So I thank you, Commissioner and Commissioners, all of you for your time here this morning and your willingness to answer our questions. I think the takeaway for you, I hope, will be our interest and our concern about the audit findings, particularly those related to our private facilities and whether or not they are providing the same sorts of services at the same level as our state-run facilities, because contractually, I think that's what we think we're requiring of them, and to find out that perhaps that's not the case is a bit concerning. Because again, as I said in the beginning, part of the goal of incarceration is to help people improve themselves so that they will not be returning to to just decrease recidivism, and not providing the opportunities in all of our facilities, for it to be the luck of the draw, whether you have an option to get post-secondary education or therapy or whatever is really, unfair. So we look forward to hearing from you how the oversight is going in that area and what corrections are being made to ensure that all of the inmates that are in Tennessee prisons, whether state or private run, are receiving the opportunities and have the options that we as a state are paying for. So we thank you for that and for all the work that you do. As others have mentioned, we realize it's very difficult. It's a tough employment situation for everyone, and your department probably more so than many others have that issue. And if there are things that from your perspective that could be done to improve your retention, again, I think it's very costly to keep hiring people and training them, and you train them and then they move on somewhere else. So if we can look at, if you have interesting ideas about that, I think we would all be open to hearing what we might be able to do to help you to improve those rates and to cut down that churn and that training cost, as well as improve the safety of the facilities that you're in charge of, and not just for the inmates, but obviously for those who are in charge of running them. So thank you again for being here, and we look forward to, as I said, follow up on how these audit findings are being corrected. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Corrections Institute. Director Wall, I believe, is here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Ms. Chairman.
Thank you for coming out on a rainy, nasty day.
It was fun.
Commissioner, we'll just ask you to just get started with your presentation. Members, as always, I forgot to mention earlier, but dashboard does have the presentation. You'll be able to see it there as well as on the screen. So, Commissioner, Director.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chairman and all members. I just want to make this short and sweet today. You all have the information. I'm really trying to be expedient because I know you all have a busy calendar. Tennessee Corrections Institute is the agency that inspects facilities across the state. We provide the training, the training for inmate programming, the training for every aspect of what a local jail does across the state, as well as accreditation, as well as technical assistance. You name it, for the locals, we do it. It's whatever they need on a local agency level. The great news is I'm here before you today, not asking for a single penny. There's no new money there. However, what we are asking for is to reclassify some money that we currently have in our current budget into our salary line item, so we can hire some individuals to really meet the need of all of the initiatives that have been going on across the state, both with our agency and local agencies, to help support those. And we're excited about the future. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Big picture is we just want to be able to help the locals and push that money back into the local communities and provide more access in the local communities, to local sheriff's offices, to the jails, to the people who support the jails. We contract as much as we can out now, but we're moving forward with trying to add positions, probably a year too late, but we wanted to see the entire picture. But with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have, and that's it.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. We're going to give you a prize for brevity and as well as working through storms to get here. Chairman Crawford, you're first on my list.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. In the 2022-23 budget, we appropriated $4.97 million to establish the 4 positions to expand a partnership with the Tennessee Board of Regents. And during those discussions, you all were talking about opening up some new regional training sites. My question is, provide us an update with what's going on with that program, and have all those 4 positions, have they all been filled, and where are those sites located in the state?
The 4 positions have been filled. We have signed leases in all areas. The 3 places that they're located, our new home office will be in Lebanon, Tennessee. We'll have one in Clinton, Tennessee, which is in Anderson County, and one in Jackson, Tennessee, which will be the first that we'll likely occupy because we're taking over the old TBI building, and we're in the process of getting that renovated. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow to look at some of the things that we're having done down there. I think that'll be a big assistance. Yes, we have filled those 4 positions, but as we move forward with these initiatives, it is moving the speed of light with TCAT and TBR. We're looking at, and I have our director of training here, David Lola. We're looking at approximately 30 TCAT TBRs that we're providing support to in training and teaching our basic training so we can allow for recruitment and retention in those local areas. So we're working hard to get these done, but that's where we're at with the regional sites.
Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. One more question. when they go through these TCATs and stuff like that for the correctional officer side, do they receive a certificate for that, or is this an actual certification that they receive as a Tennessee correctional officer?
They receive a certificate for that for local correctional officers. As far as the Department of Correction is concerned, that's absolutely separate. But if they present that and then pass all of the items required by code for a sheriff to hire them, they don't have to go through their basic training because they have completed it through that program or through our basic training. So they walk out with a certificate saying, I'm ready to rock and roll. You don't have to send me through TCI after you hire me. This cuts down on the hours they're having to send them out and allowing them to begin work more expediently.
Chairman Crawford.
Thank you for your indulgence. I'm sorry.
Fine.
When they come out of there, then, so the TCI program does intoximeter and all these other different things that they have to use, do they get that training at the TCAT centers as well?
It depends. It depends on what the TCAT site is providing and what their program looks at. Each one is a little bit different. The one thing that we know is consistent, and right now we're working on the curriculum with TCAT and TBR to streamline everything and say, look, there's a little too much fluff in here. Let's get down to brass tacks and get these people ready to work. So we're working with them on that. But depending on the local agency, they may not be able to provide that, but that's one of the things that is my ask today, is so we can have people with specialized type training abilities like that on staff, and we can send them on demand to these TCATs or on demand to the local agencies that need these agencies, or coordinate regional trainings with them.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed something, but could you go through the regional training sites again, please?
It's actually currently, we don't have we have training site that we have to beg, borrow, and steal, right? Or our Nashville office, which is rather difficult. Part of this funding was to establish these regional training sites so people from East Tennessee and people from West Tennessee don't have to travel all the way to Nashville to always have their training done here. It was to provide a hub to where people could drive within an hour and a half, maximum of 2 hours from where they live, and get the specialized training specifically for the rural, distressed, at-risk counties that just don't have access to the type of training or can't even afford to put them in a vehicle to drive them there. Part of our initiative is actually paying for housing for the distressed and at-risk counties. That is a large portion of what we spend our budget on, is that county who can't afford a use of force training or verbal de-escalation training, that we're paying for those things, and we'll house them. We'll say, just get them there, and we'll get them trained for you. These regional sites will do a lot to offset. Even, they still have to travel quite a ways a lot of times, but this will do a lot to offset us having to either rent space or borrow space or try to coordinate space with an agency. These will be productive hubs that each agency in that region will be able to utilize.
I'm sorry, I didn't make my question clear, I don't think. You mentioned regional offices in Lebanon, Jackson. Where are the others, or where will they be?
It's three. We'll have Lebanon, Jackson, and Clinton.
Okay, so Clinton was the one. So we don't have anything in like Northeast Tennessee, because Clinton is still a hike from upper
from Johnson
Northeast
City.
Tennessee.
Absolutely. That's one of our target areas that if we ever have to expand, we're actually working with the Tennessee, with CTAS and some other agencies through the University of Tennessee, to maybe we could share some space up there. That's long-term for the future at the moment, because the money, allocated in the way we were looking at doing this, because if we decided to go 5 different places, we don't have the people. So, we're already struggling for that. So, we're hoping to move there, and maybe Northwest Tennessee, some different areas that are underserved.
Thank you. Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give a shout out to one of my buddies from Greene County, Jerry Scott, great guy, and actually called me yesterday morning wanted to talk about the recurring small cost increase that we put in last year's budget, or this year's budget, actually $25,000 for risk and needs assessment training for sheriffs and jail administrators. Tell me a little bit about how many sheriffs and jail administrators are participating, and how many local jails are currently accredited?
Absolutely. I have the rough numbers, but I have William Kane, who's here. He is over that entire program. We have over 20 accredited facilities across the state that are accredited and working on a lot more. But I'll let him speak to the risk needs assessments and the programming real quick. Yeah, microphone.
Well, I guess.
Red light.
It says on or off. Hit it again. It's on when it's red.
There we go. Is that better? Okay. Well, now it's gone off again. I'll try to speak up. It's on. Oh, okay. All right. So yes, we've done a lot with the risk needs assessment training. We've provided, since the inception of the Reentry Success Act, we've had classes with the Strong R training. As far as risk needs assessment, we held 3 of those regionally. We have had 4 LSMI trainings as well, which is another evidence-based accredited risk needs assessment that's recognized, and we've also had a training with the Davidson County risk needs assessment model. And the reason we've had numerous different models out there is to try to provide the tools and the avenues for all the local agencies to be able to really conduct these assessments. The Strong R risk needs assessment that TDOC conducts, and we've trained several people in the local agencies, is strictly for Senate state inmates. Well, it's not just the Senate state inmates that need risk needs assessment. And so we've also provided LSCMI and the Davidson County model, which are accepted, all 3 and all 3 accepted under the new law. Those can be done on pretrial inmates and sentence county inmates. That way we're providing tools to be able to do these assessments on all the offenders. And the reason that's important is it's not just trying to figure out who is the most likely to reoffend, to be a recidivist. It's also to figure out what are the needs of those individuals that brought them there in the first place. And so that's those criminogenic needs that cause them to be incarcerated. So we've done numerous trainings between that, 2 program summits. We've trained over 850 officers in the local agencies since 2022 on a whole host of programs, opportunities, risk needs assessment, to give a really good holistic approach on all the different things through programs that would help to reduce the recidivism rates. So we've really done a lot of things in that. I know that that's more than what you asked for, but it's a really big picture. And we are continuing to provide these opportunities.
Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you bring up a good point in your conversation about this. And we just heard from Department of Corrections, and for all the programs that they're talking about, and this is not under your control, but it's a good time to bring this up. There are concerns. We're hearing about programs and trying to lower the recidivism rate. And so folks don't reoffend. How can we get them integrated back into the workforce? And there's a bit of a disconnect, and money is a big part of it. When they're in county lockup, local lockups, they don't always get those services because they're on such a smaller scale. And I guess it's up to us and potentially you all to come up with ideas, thoughts, and again, that's not your bailiwick particularly, but just overall Department of Corrections, you guys and all of us working together to figure out how to get everybody that's incarcerated back into the workforce. Thanks for letting me editorialize a bit. Final question on the issue we're talking about. What happens to the jail if they fail to be accredited? Thank you, Madam Chair.
I can answer that. The accreditation is their choice. That is the initiative. They can choose to have accreditation or not. It's separate from certification. It was part of the Success and Reentry Act where they could get accredited and receive extra funds for their state sentenced inmates. And I am pleased to say that all agencies that are accredited are receiving those funds. But it's not a requirement to be accredited, which is real programs, incentive heavy and services heavy. But the certification process, I will tell you too, we only have 5 decertified facilities in the state, which is outstanding, versus the 124 that we serve. So your local agencies out there are doing an amazing job, and we love to support them even further.
As a follow-up along those lines, of the 124 that you serve, what percentage or how many of those are accredited?
Yeah, I'll let RK answer that question. He has the statistics.
Yeah, because we've just accredited two new facilities that were not previously. So that we have a total of 17 counties, 22 facilities that are now currently accredited. 2 counties and 2 facilities are Tier 2 accredited, and the others are Tier 1 accredited.
All right, so we have some space to work within in that population. Just a question, and I'm not sure it really is directly, I know it's probably not directly within your purview, but I guess a request. We have a program available through mental health to provide Vivitrol treatment to inmates in our local prisons who have drug issues. We've had a very slow take rate on implementing that program. And a lot of it, according to mental health, there's just not been a lot of interest from local facilities in doing that. So Vivitrol has been shown to be very effective in reducing drug dependency on a permanent basis. So I would just ask that you seem to have a great relationship with the local jail facilities across the state. And as a part of that relationship, I would hope that there would be an opportunity to encourage them to participate in that program. There's funding available for it. It will help us all. So again, just a request or a resolution or an urging resolution from the chair of the finance department to do that.
I can speak to that real quick if you don't mind. We actually had Dr. Lloyd and some of his staff and different individuals at our program summit that we initiated 2 years ago. We had our second summit last year. It was attended by around 200 individuals from the county facilities. And yes, the MAP program we had several individuals there. And we also encouraged all the local agencies and those that provided the healthcare providers that they contract with to attend that as well. It was very well received. We're actually going to have individuals speaking to that again this next year, including hopefully maybe some judges from Jefferson County, who was our first pilot program for that. So we are actually looking at that, and it's actually been well received so far.
Well, thank you for that. And I, again, would just urge, and I realize I gave myself a new title, chair of the finance committee, not the department. So Commissioner Bryson, my apologies. But it really is, I think, an opportunity that we have to help some people and to reduce our own cost as a state. Getting these people, as Chairman Hawk has said, is really important. We have a labor shortage in so many areas to get every able-bodied person that we can back into the workforce. And that's one pathway for doing that. So thank you for your help in that regard. Chairman Baum.
Thank you, Chair Lady Hazelwood, and welcome this morning. We noticed that you have requested 16 additional positions to be funded with the equity adjustment part of the salary pool. Can you tell us a little more about what those positions will be used for?
Absolutely. I'll in a second, I'll divert over to David Alola, who's our training director. However, what I will say is everything that we've talked about today is being needed in the local facilities, and they need our help. So that's why we're asking for these positions for training, for help with the grants, for help with everything that we do with accreditation. We talked about the situation where, counties are slow to come on board. Well, I mean, I love the fact that they sit back and a couple of people are like, well, you're my guinea pig and let's see how you do. But once it takes off, like accreditation, like specialized training initiatives, That's the whole purpose, is to get the personnel that we need, because even contracting, and we've contracted a lot, is difficult and sometimes time consuming and red tape driven. So we're trying to do whatever we can to provide the services for the facilities, but I can turn that over to David Alola for specific training items.
David Alola, Director of Training. To answer your question, sir, we are utilizing those 16 positions to really focus on the big topics that are really large in law enforcement and corrections right now currently. Confrontation avoidance, verbal de-escalation instructor, crisis intervention training, support training, resiliency training, leadership training, retention and recruitment training. There's a lot of specialized training that we're really working on that's high dollar training that costs us for contractors. So the focus of these 16 positions, the lion's share of them are actually to bring on trainers, certify them in those training disciplines, and then for us to be able to return that and continuously teach that throughout the state, regardless of region. Whereas if we are contracting that training, for example, we may spend $60,000 on 2 training sessions, and we have a limit. So we get 30 students per class typically. So $60,000 at 60 students, or under this program that we're developing, what we're looking at, what our ask is then I can bring on that one person, 2, 3 people, and now they're all certified in these disciplines. And they're able to do a rate of return to our customers on a infinitesimal basis. It's just simply time and calendar space at that point. That's what the lion's share of that plan is, sir. Now, there is also a couple administrative support personnel for our regional sites to support our regional training sites. But this plan is bare bones for the purposes of getting out there and enhancing and delivering service. Excuse me. Getting out there, enhancing and delivering service, because with our TCAT TBR initiative, when all 30 of these sites go live, which is anticipated to be in the next 3 months, we're looking at approximately a 50 to 60% increase in training demands, and we simply just do not have the staff to do it.
If you use salary equity for the new positions, then does that run the risk of having higher turnover rates if we're not using the money to keep existing employees?
That's the wonderful thing about this, is that we've addressed all the equity needs, and it's not even the equity in the salary line. It's essentially to move money from below the line to above the line that we're currently using for, contract and training or what have you. We're still going to contract training. We're just wanting to move that above the line. But I will say that we have been blessed that through this study that you all have helped us with, and the governor's office has helped us with, that we've actually been able to become competitive within our own organization, and help locals with recruitment and retention and things like that. Just to point out that it's amazing. Our staff come to us every day and say, it's nice finally being compensated. So I will say that I don't think that's going to be an issue, but we will continue to have money in our equity lining, to retain employees for sure.
Okay, and last question. How much of your salary equity is being used for the new positions? Maybe it's not all of it.
The quick number, I don't know what the exact number. Alan Staley with FNA is here with us. I want to say we have about 50,000 in equity currently. And that's just a rough estimate. He could be back there going, Will, you're completely wrong. But I do know what we want to do is, out of the 4.9 million that's below the line, move up about 1.2, not from the equity line of the salary, but part of the budget, but move it from the operations side up to the salary line.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. You may be able to answer this question. I think I have the answer for it, but reading the responsibilities of Correction Institute is required establish minimum standards for local jails, lockups, workhouses, and detention facilities in the state, and to conduct an annual inspection of each facility. During that annual facilities, for example, in Shelby County, does it have anything to do when you go into that facilities, you look at the infrastructure and have any comments and recommendations in reference to the infrastructures of the facilities?
Absolutely. And are you speaking specifically to Shelby County?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And our reports, our annual inspection reports have reflected that. Yes, sir.
Could you briefly say where we are in Shelby County, the
Uh,
recommendations?
You have an amazing group of individuals that run that operation. Sheriff Bonner does a great job with his staff. I will say in our reports, if I'm recalling correctly, and I have my Deputy Director Bob Bass with me, both of us have been on lots of inspections there. It's an older facility that they need to look at it someday. And I think our report even reflects that it's an older facility that they need to look at replacing in the future.
Representative Miller.
Thank you for that. I had visitors yesterday, and one of their recommendations were to approach local government and see if we can get an increase in taxes delegated to just the facilities of a new facility. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Representative Sparks.
Thank you, sir. I got a text from mentioned Bernard Solandi. I asked if any concerns. He just said that just let them know they're doing a great job and just keep the training standards at a high level. And if there's anything they feel that we need to do more to try to assist y'all. Anything else?
No, sir. Bernard is a one. I heard you speaking to him about TDOC. He's an amazing man, and I've worked with him for a long time. He's a great human being as well.
We mentioned the importance of mentorships. How vital is that to impacting lives that, that's not costing us $30,000 a year?
Right.
If they're incarcerated.
Mentorships are everything on the local level. And that's part of what we're building through training is how to establish mentorships internally, how to build your agency from inside, how to grow people. The problem with a lot of that is many local agencies, specifically rural, distressed at-risk counties, they can't afford those types of training. That's part of what we're trying to provide, that education, that training that helps them build mentorships within their facility. So we're building the next leader to reduce liability, to look at the risk management of their facility. All of those items are exactly what we're talking about, what David, gave a brief description of as well.
Director, we appreciate, again, your time with us today. And most of all, we appreciate the work that you are doing with our local facilities across the state to all the things that you do to make sure that they are adequately, they have adequate facilities to do the job that they're being required to do. Particularly for us as a state, we know that we have many state inmates housed in local facilities. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that those are well run and staffed properly, and that those inmates have at least some of the same opportunities that they would were they being housed in state facilities. But again, I thank you for your work. We look forward to getting these new training centers online and being able to improve and increase the amount of training and lowering the cost of that training for our local governments to, having people come to Nashville is not only long travel, but it's very expensive here to lodge and feed people. So having these in these outlying communities is going to be a great deal of help. So thank you for leading the charge on that. We look forward next year this time to hearing about all those that are up and running and perhaps others in the pipeline that might be coming behind them. So thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
Next up, our final budget hearing for today will be the Department of Commerce and Insurance. And we're going to ask Commissioner Lawrence and his team to come forward.
Yes, we did.
Good morning, Commissioner. We would just ask that you would introduce your team and then go straight into your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Lady. My name is Carter Lawrence, and I have the privilege of serving as the Commissioner for the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. I'm joined here at the table by several members of the team, and I'll let us go down the table, introduce ourselves. Jennifer?
Jennifer Peck, Chief of Staff and the COO at Commerce and Insurance.
Paul Hartberger, Assistant Commissioner, Fiscal and Operations.
I'm Kimberly Whaley. I'm the Budget Director.
All right, thanks. And most of the rest of the executive leadership team of Commerce and Insurance is here in the room. So at Commerce and Insurance, we're tasked with regulating everything from fire prevention and the training of law enforcement officers to the regulation of insurance. So it's really a diverse range of regulatory functions that we're entrusted with. But what unites us is a mission of protecting consumers and empowering professionals. And so across those different ways that we serve the public, that's what unifies and what we're really proud to be able to do on behalf of all Tennesseans and ultimately on behalf of y'all as well. And so I hope that as you hear from your constituents, you reach out to us to let us know how we can better serve them. And I know I've had the opportunity of sitting in most of your offices recently and appreciate the time that you shared with us on that. I also can appreciate that this is the final budget presentation of the day, and you probably don't want me to talk too long. So instead, I'll just move straight into the cost increases that we have and give plenty of time for questions if you've got them. Do we not have slides? Okay. All right, I'll paint a picture with my words then.
We recognize there's an AV issue. We are attempting to work on it. So
Great. Okay. Wonderful. Well,
it is on dashboard members. You can find it on dashboard, even though you can't see it here in the screen at this point in time.
very good.
Sorry,
All right.
Commissioner.
Oh, no, thank you. So our second slide would show you what what the governor's proposed cost increases for commerce and insurance are. There are 4 on there. 3 of those are statutorily mandated, and I'll take them in the order they come. The first 2 are salary for law enforcement officers at the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. The third is for Go Build Tennessee, and that is for year 3 of 3 funding for Go Build as they are going through reauthorization and a rethinking longer term funding mechanism. And our fourth is the emergency responder death benefits. Unfortunately, we've continued to see officers killed in the line of duty, and Commerce and Insurance is tasked with providing the line of duty death benefits for those first responders. So even though that money goes from FNA, it's Commerce and Insurance that receives the certification as to a line of duty death, and then FNA cuts that check, and it's reflected in our budget. Our next slide. Okay, all right, you tried, thank you. Is supplemental requests for this budget year, which again, continue with the theme of the emergency responder death benefits, is more money because of the 5-year annuity payments that are made. We have obligations for the first responders who have died in the line of duty, and we unfortunately need another $1.25 million in order to be able to meet those obligations. The final slide is reductions, which is rent reductions from our reduced real estate footprint as part of AWS 2.0. And look at that, the slide's caught up. Madam Chair Lady and committee, thank you for the opportunity to present that. And at this time, I'd like to stop and see what questions you have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for again your brevity and for allowing us the time for questions. I do have a series of those on my list, beginning with Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I don't know if you were able to watch yesterday. I'm sure all the commissioners sit around and watch everyone else's budget presentations, but I belittled my own understanding of the difference between parentheses and commas. And to just follow that vein, I will say the last slide you left up there did have parentheses on them. So we're very thankful for that credit, the credit back to the budget. But I did have a question as it relates to we had $30 million reoccurring for retention bonuses in 22. It's kind of been a long time ago. And the reason why your department and this body decided to fund additional retention is because we were having a hard time maintaining those employees and hiring new good ones. I know that throughout that process that you didn't get the money until 9-10 months after we originally passed the budget. Then it was implemented. I wondered if you've been able to utilize that money, how you're utilizing it. If you could speak to a little bit about that, and I may have a couple of follow-up questions for you.
Thank you. And I actually did watch yesterday's presentation. I thought there was maybe going to be a question that was posed to Colonel Perry, but I guess that
Oh.
might come from someone else.
Well, some of us know that you're not supposed to ask anybody, regardless of their the wager that might be going on behind the desk. They're not supposed to ask people's age, but
That sounds like good manners.
he's
And,
not listening.
yeah,
now.
so thank you for the opportunity to talk about the $30 million. So it was a one-time funding of the $30 million for the recruiting and retention that we were fortunate enough to receive in order to help fulfill the goal of getting more law enforcement officers into the profession and keeping the best and brightest that we have. So you touched on some of the difficulty that we had. So after July 1st, when we got the money, we then had to establish the process for giving the money. And we started to walk down the process of promulgating rules. And we were pretty far into that before we found out, oh, we didn't have to do that. And we were empowered to use delegated grant authority. So that was the reason for the initial long delay in getting that started. But we went through the delegated grant authority route. We put in place the timeline requirements that have to be satisfied in order to get the payments. And we have started to make those payments out. But I think the really important numbers to hit is that we've got 220 law enforcement agencies that have opted in to participate in this, which we're really pleased about. And that represents 63% of all agencies in Tennessee. So that $30 million is going to be having the long-term impact that was envisioned by this body and by the governor for making sure that Tennessee communities are effectively policed.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. And I recognize it's non-recurring money. I guess, there was some discussion about whether we were going to pay these as bonuses or whether we were going to pay these in order to retain or recruit new officers, where we would pay travel expenses for them. At one point in time, we were talking about the reimbursement just based upon distance traveled. And so I don't know if we did that or what the process were, but when we asked the questions previous years, there didn't seem to be like a whole lot of clear direction. So could you maybe give me an idea of the range of bonus, if you will, or since these are one-time dollars, they have to be paid as bonuses, and how much money's been spent, and how much longer do you think it'll be to go through the rest of those dollars?
Yeah. So thank you. So first, just because I've got this in paper format and be easier likely for y'all to see it, I can send it to the chair for distribution. And we hope that there's continued interest in this, and we'd love to see more agencies that want to participate. So, to the extent that y'all have conversations with agencies in your district, we would love for there to be more that wanted to participate. But this is broken down into two broad categories: officers that come to us with experience and those that don't have previous certified experience. So for the experienced officers, it's a slightly richer amount that they can ultimately get $10,000 in total bonuses. It's broken out over 6, 12, 24, and 36 months to get there. So that goes into a little bit of the keeping them and not just making sure that it's too front end loaded where all the money goes out the door before the agencies are able to recoup some of the costs that they've invested in those officers. Now, there's more cost, obviously, with the new officers. They don't have experience, but also means they're not as proven. So in the work that we did with our stakeholders, we established this differently, and it's $8,000 of total bonuses that are available for those officers without the previous experience. And those start at 12 months, and then it goes up through the 24 and 36. So the way that we structured it in the consultation with the agencies and the individual leaders that we spoke with was try to make sure that we were growing the pie of officers in Tennessee and not simply reallocating it. We wanted to make sure that we're getting more into the profession. So I know you asked other questions in there, and I totally lost the theme. So maybe let me turn to Jennifer Peck, since this is one of her programs. So Jennifer, if you would.
Sure, Jennifer Peck. So we have encumbered right now about $8.8 million. And the goal is to have $8.8 million at least encumbered each year, and it will last about 4.5 years. It depends upon how many agencies take part in it, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. That's all I got.
Chairman Hicks of Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair Lady and Commissioner. Good to see you and your team here. Just, I guess what my questions are going to revolve around is the firefighter equipment grants that were appropriated last year, the funds, that is about $10 million. Can you talk a little bit about the grant application? I think there was a little bit of latency there getting the program kind of started. And of course, that's not a new program. So I'm just curious of what happened there. Seems like there was about a 4-month delay. So certainly want to talk about that. And as you talk about that, how much money has gone out? And also curious, just what was that average grant award?
All right, I'll give the team time to calculate that average. But to start with, let me just say thank you so much. This body has been incredibly supportive of volunteer firefighters, which, as y'all know, protects the vast majority of Tennessee and Tennesseans. So the lives and property are protected by fellow citizens that just take it upon themselves to step up and help out. And so it's really important for us at the State Fire Marshal's office to do all that we can to support those volunteer firefighters. So starting in 2019, the Volunteer Fire Equipment and Training Grant was established by law. And there's been different amounts of one-time money that's been put into it, from $500,000 in the first year. I think in 2020, there was no money put into it. Last year was the most money that was put in. It was $10 million, which was really incredible. And because that was such a generous amount that was provided, we were really aggressive in the messaging of this money exists. So agencies that have needs, come and tell us. And so over the preceding years, we'd seen various amounts of grants come in, but last year was the highest, with $37 million of grants that came in to us. And we were fortunate to be able to, like we mentioned, put out the $10 million in grant for an average of $57,000 per agency, $52,000 per agency. So that money goes everywhere, from getting new turnout gear for the volunteer firefighters. And I apologize, y'all probably heard us tell this before, but we've gone to all 95 counties to visit with volunteer fire departments. And in those fire departments, we would sometimes see agencies that had 30-year-old turnout gear, despite the manufacturer warranty of replacing it every 10. And so this is money that literally is protecting the lives of those who are protecting lives and property in Tennessee. It's been hugely impactful, very successful, and we're really appreciative of the support. I think you asked a question about the implementation of it. From everything that I know, the last few years have been really straightforward for us, because we've established the program, the grant process, where they are anonymously reviewed, has been working smoothly from our end. So I'm not sure about the difficulties that might have happened in 2019, but these last at least 5 years have gone really smoothly for us.
Okay, fantastic. And then changing gears just a little bit, can you talk a little bit about the department's role in the mediation between insurance carriers and policyholders, and kind of talk about as well as the money that's secured for policyholders, and does that pass through your department? Could you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. We are really proud of the role that we have in being able to support consumers. So I'll just say, as an aside, I had my first time as a policyholder filing a claim last year. There was a hailstorm that came through, and that's when I realized it's pretty different being the regulator of an insurance product versus being the user of the insurance product. And using insurance is something that we don't do every day. And so it's kind of different and scary. And I didn't let anyone know who I was, so I wasn't getting any sort of white glove treatment. But if that's true for those of us who know a little bit more about insurance, I think how much more so for the average person. And so one of the things that the insurance division does is help out consumers who are having issues. And that mediation work that we do is really important, where more than 3,500 Tennesseans brought us complaints last year, where we step in and we help mediate. And through that effort, we're able to get over $17 million back to those consumers. So that money never comes to us. It just goes straight into the pockets of the consumers. But that's another piece that we're really proud of, that education work that we do, that it exists, and here's how we can help. So we put that out on social media. We go to local community centers, senior centers, and certainly if any of y'all are having district meetings, we would love to be there and tell them how we help out from an insurance perspective and how we can assist them.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair Lady.
Representative Lynn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Commissioner and your staff, thank you for being here. It's nice to see you. The governor's proposed budget includes $1.3 million of recurring state funding for emergency responder death benefits in order to address increased claims. The 2023-24 budget included an additional $1 million recurring and $1 million non-recurring for increased line of duty death claims. Can you share with us, when you are examining these claims, why is the state experiencing such an increase in line of duty death claims for emergency responders? Do you keep statistics like that and that can help us understand?
So we don't have the statistics as to the why those are happening.
Okay.
So Commerce and Insurance is tasked with the receipt of the line of duty death certifications from the appropriate agency. So, tragically, a sheriff's deputy is murdered. In that case, the sheriff would send to Commerce and Insurance a claim for this first responder's death benefit, certify that it was a line of duty death, and then we take that and we simply give it to FNA to then begin the process of those 5-year annuity checks. So you're right that, we hate that we're having to ask for more money for this and for annuity, for supplemental money for it. But it's unfortunately and tragically the case that in order to meet those obligations that exist, that we need this additional money for those death benefits.
Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When my mother was a child, her father was a police officer killed in the line of duty. There were no death benefits for the widow at that time. And her uncle also was a police officer killed in the line of duty. So much for one family to handle. And I can tell you, I am so glad that we have a program to help first responders in this situation, because it really was a lifelong pain and suffering for my mom to go on like that. So glad we have that, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner, along those lines, do you know if the increases, are they basically law enforcement? Are they EMT? Or what area of first responders are those increases coming from primarily?
So for the claims that we have right now, 44 are police and 6 are fire. That's the breakdown.
All right. Thank you. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Commissioner, thank you and your team. Public Chapter 478 from 2021 authorized volunteer firefighters to receive $600 cash supplement for completing an annual in-service training. Previously, the supplement was only available to career firefighters. 3 questions. How many volunteer firefighters are participating in the training now? 3.8 million in recurring funding was appropriated for these supplements. How much are you spending annually? And the last question would be, did you experience any difficulties in rolling out and implementing this training supplement?
Yeah, so first, thank you again for the opportunity to talk again about volunteer firefighters. Like I mentioned earlier, we care deeply about being able to support those volunteer firefighters who are protecting so much of Tennessee. And let me take the last question first about the difficulty of rolling it out. To be frank, yes, we did, because it was a totally new program for us about not getting the money out, but getting the word out and getting people to sign up for it, because these volunteer firefighters are already taking time out of their lives to serve in their communities. And we were asking them to do some training and let us know about the training so that they could then get the $600 that you mentioned that's available through the program. And it's been an all hands on deck experience for us in order to go out into the communities and say, y'all, this exists and here's what it takes to get it, and please do get it. So in the State Fire Marshal's office, we've been really aggressively going into communities to make them aware of this, and hopeful that as more time passes and our efforts continue, that we'll see more volunteer firefighters signing up for it. So I think your first question about the number of participants, Fiscal year 22, we had 1424. In fiscal year 23, 954. And so for the amount of money that represents, 572,000 last year, and the year before that, in fiscal year 22, $855,000. Again, we are working to get more volunteer firefighters to be aware of this and avail themselves of it. And so we worked with the firefighting community to make sure that the requirements that we're putting in place, which are to try and increase standards, increase training, so that those volunteer firefighters are safer while they're working and they can better protect their communities. That there is some level of burden with that, but what we've wanted to do and what we've attempted to do is not make it overly burdensome. So continuing to work through that and hopeful that we'll see continued uptake of this.
Representative Miller, you have follow-up?
Thank you for that. And I want to thank this committee and the General Assembly for providing those funds that are long overdue. And I would just encourage you all to do as much as you can to get those dollars in those volunteer firefighters' hands. Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady and Commissioners. Great to see you today. And the question I have is about the Go Build program. And so this year there's been a proposed cost increase of $250,000 for the third year of this program. Can you give us an update on how that's going? And are we seeing more students choosing careers that are promoted in these trades?
So thank you. Go Build is funded through Commerce and Insurance, but Commerce and Insurance does not have a seat on the board. And the reporting requirements out of Go Build don't go to Commerce and Insurance, but to labor. So I think we have yes, perfect. All right. We've got a representative from Go Build here. If you'd like for us to invite up and answer questions about Go Build.
I think we'd like to hear that. Yeah.
Wonderful. It would come on up.
If you could come forward, please. And for those who need no introduction, but please, for the record, introduce yourself anyway.
Hi, Kent Starwalt, I'm the Executive Vice President of the Tennessee Road Builders and an ex officio member of Go Build. So actually, there's a bill actually moving through the General Assembly to reauthorize Go Build for another 5 years, sponsored by Chairman Williams. So Go Build, it is funded out of the Contractors Licensing Board, and they're doing an additional $250 of their budget this year for us. We get 50% of basically the reserves or for that on an annual basis, plus the $250 that's in the budget this year for the governor to fund the program. And basically, we're a promotion campaign to let kids know about careers in the construction fields. And so we've been doing a lot of digital marketing, lots of work in that area, and have had some great success in getting kids, try to get them in the training programs or understand that they can have a career in the construction industry.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And so as this program progresses, are y'all making any changes to it, or is it just kind of leaving it the way
We're at this point, we're continue to go as we are set forth in statute, actually, as a promotion campaign. So we're and we've had the conversations with Commerce Insurance about some changes in some funding and about changes in some sort of the makeup of the board or who the reporting requirements are. And this year we decided to let's move forward with just reauthorization and come back and talk about those issues at another time.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you.
Just as a matter of interest, in Hamilton County, we have a construction academy. The county, the state, and AGC and some other private investors put the money in to revamp and renovate an old elementary school. And I've been there a couple of times for various things. There's a lot of activity, so I'm assuming there's a lot of training going on. But can you help us understand how Go Build is interfacing with those kinds of local efforts, or are they?
So those kind of training programs are on our website. So as kids or young adults come to the website and look through they're guided to training opportunities, and that would be one of them. And so that's how, as we promote it, then we promote them into training. And so we list those training programs on our website as an attempt to get people in it, similar to like the Pi Center in Bradley County, and as well as the TCAP programs around the state, where we have 3 equipment operator training programs, as well as other apprentice training programs through ABC and AGC.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for our Go Build expert? Seeing none. Next on my list is Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take the opportunity, Commissioners, thank you and your staff for what you do for our fire department down in Hardeman County. Lynn Price, he thanks the world of you guys, and I just want to tell y'all that we thank you for what you do and for the grants we receive and all the services. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, I have one additional question regarding the number of vacancies. Your department, according to the information that we have, there's 97 vacancies, but 29 of those have been vacant for longer than a year. Are those long-term vacancies? Are they particularly challenging positions to fill in terms of requirements, or can you tell me what's going on with those and what efforts are underway to fill those positions, or are they positions that perhaps the department might not really need?
So thank you for the opportunity to talk about the positions. I guess I'll start by first you asked about, are some of them difficult to fill? And the answer is yes for some of them. For example, some of the insurance examiner positions that are long-term vacancies, we are going through a process right now of reclassifying those down to a lower level so we can hopefully get entry-level people into it and get them trained up, because they're currently at a higher classification level for which it's been difficult to find people that have the qualifications that are needed, but then also are interested in the rewards that we can offer to them. So we're doing work on those specific ones, but I guess I should back up a little bit and mention that we have 7 external facing divisions. And so the positions that we have fall across all of those different divisions as far as the vacancies go. And so we can't necessarily take something that's been established for the insurance division and move it over to support the legal division, which, by the way, I'll mention is fully staffed for the first time in as long as our general counsel can remember. So we're really appreciative of that. But we are working on trying to identify where we have the real needs for those long-term positions, because we have had to take, for example, the regulatory boards, where we now license roughly 300,000 Tennesseans. That's increased substantially from just 5 years ago. And we do have some vacant positions that we can use as we're more called upon to do that. So just yesterday, I was meeting with Assistant Commissioner Martin for taking a look at some of the needs that exist, some of those long-term vacancies, and how we can reclassify those to meet the existing needs that we have. So for that specific example, which is probably more in the weeds than you want, there's an old auditor position that is no longer, hasn't been used for several years. We can reclassify that into an existing need to better serve our customers. And that's kind of a specific example for a broader approach that we want to have with the positions. What are the needs that we have, and how can we best need those with the resources that we've got?
Just interested in what impact those vacancies might be having on your department. What are you having to do to compensate for? Is that slowing down any of the consumer interactions, or how is that impacting the operations of your department, not having those people in place?
So to take, for example, the insurance example that I started with, we are empowered to be able to contract out for some of that work. So we right now rely on contract work where we are authorized and we have the positions to do it in-house if we were able to hire people into it. And so our goal for that specific example, when we're talking about insurance, is that we want to have in-house knowledge and also rely on external contractors, and think that if we blend that appropriately, then we are providing the best value to the public. So it's not just born with public servants, and it's not just on contractors. with whom we don't necessarily have as much institutional knowledge and oversight. But by mixing those together, we can best serve the public. So to go back to that specific example, what we're doing right now, until we reclassify down those positions to be able to hire folks in, we're just relying a little bit more on the contracted work. So we've squeezed the balloon that direction. And what the hope would be is once we've reclassified and we're able to hire in for those positions, then we're more appropriately blending between those two categories, between what's in-house and what's contracted out.
Is the work in your department in any way cyclical that the contract employees could help you in, if there's high level, high volume at one point, but you don't necessarily need those people on a year-round basis? Is that an option, or are these contracts longer term?
Those are long-term contracts, given the 5-year examination cycle that we have for our domestic companies. We certainly do take into consideration the cyclical nature of the work that we do. So, for example, in the regulatory boards, where there's a 2-year licensing time, so we'll see some programs will have really heavy years followed by a lighter year. So the goal for us is to appropriately staff and move resources, so that we're not overly staffed and, taxing too heavily the licensees who, as this body well knows, are tasked with maintaining self-sufficiency for that individual licensing entity.
All right, Commissioner, thank you for answering our questions, for your presentation, and obviously for the work that you do. It's important to your department. I'm sorry, Leader Lambert, did you have some words of wisdom before I?
Madam
shut
Chairman,
down?
about that, I just want to thank the commissioner for one of the most efficient presentations we've had. He promised a short presentation. Could you give a tutorial to some of the other commissioners? That was fantastic.
At the pleasure of the committee. Thank you.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, Commissioner, we do appreciate the work that you do and that your department affords. Again, as you say, you oversee some of the areas that Tennesseans don't interact with on a regular basis. And I think all of us have had the sort of road to Damascus, situation that you had when you had your own insurance issue. And you think, if I didn't know somebody who knew somebody, I don't know that I could navigate through this morass. So having people on staff and recognizing that and helping our Tennesseans who are, sometimes, particularly if you're in some kind of crisis situation, the last thing you need to do is spend a day or two trying to find the right person to talk to about your claim or whatever. So we do appreciate all of your work. We look forward to next year's presentation, that maybe we've been able to fill these long-term vacancies, and we have the folks that will enable your department to even be more efficient. So thanks again for being with us. And we are now back in session. That does complete our calendar for today. Don't drown me out with cheers, but our budget hearings will continue Monday at 9. And for the record, we have just 2 more Mondays of meetings scheduled. So Monday at 9, we'll see all your bright and shining faces. And without objection, we are now adjourned.
We object to Monday.